It is self validation Friday. It is self validation Friday. It is self validation Friday. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to everyone on this Friday. We made it here. Silencing the inner critic. Stop doubting yourself and start validating your worth. Stop doubting yourself and start validating your worth. Self validating Friday. I like Fridays. I like the stop um stop doubting yourself, right? Because it's important, right? So good morning. Good morning. We doubt ourselves, you guys. We doubt ourselves so much, right? Although we were put here to be of service to one another, we don't talk about that enough, right? We were put here to be of service, right? And a lot of us are stuck. A lot of us are stuck because we are looking to be served, right? We're looking to be served when truly the whole idea, right, is to be of service, to find out what is my gift, what do I need, right? So that I can serve, right? A lot of people ask, why am I single? Right? And a big part of my singleness is my capacity to serve my mate. And I want to be able to serve my mate in the highest way possible. And a lot of times because of school or because, I had kids and things like that. And then just learning that people are not here to be of service to you. What is your gift and how are you going to offer that, to your mate? And trying to do that and feeling like I have all of this to offer and there's a limited space in which I can provide that. And what I realized is that in a lot of my relationships, that was the thing. Like I wanted to move and grow and serve in a way, and it would trigger a lot of things within the relationship dynamic. And so, yeah, but I do think that when we serve, we actually get to experience ourselves. I think that we're looking for love, and we're going to get to the topic today. Stop doubting yourself and start validating your own worth. Good morning, Miss Lorraine. I do feel like that you know we're looking for love, but really the only love you can experience is your own love, right? We're looking to be served, but even if you think about it, if it's a person who's serving you that you don't have an attachment with, or you can't in some way give that back, it's like it kind of goes over your head, right? So our experience is truly our experience, and we're looking for an experience, you guys, or we're looking to be activated in a way from, we're looking to be activated in a way, um, and we're thinking that it's the externals, people, careers and things like that, a responsibility to really activate us, but it's really our responsibility to activate ourselves. So on this self-validating Friday, okay, stop silencing silence the inner critic and stop doubting yourself and start validating your own worth. I love this conversation because I think that when we can start validating who we are, then we can know the areas in which we can serve, right? We can know where we can serve, we can know where we can pour, right? And then we can start strengthening those areas. As a consequence, guess what? We're going to feel more confident about who we are. We're going to show up in the world differently, right? And we're looking for, when we show up in the world differently, right, in our fullness, right, then we feel different. When we start to feel different, remember yesterday we talked about the template. Well, my template starts to feel different and it starts to communicate a different feeling. Guess what I start to get back? I start to get back different engagements, even from the same people, you guys. There's a quote that says, a rising tide lift all boats. A rising tide lift all boats. Now, remember, the boats got to be in good shape, because if they don't, they're going to drown. But a rising tide lifts all the boats. And in going through your transformation, you may be the rising tide that lifts the boats, meaning the mindsets, the conversations, the way people think around you, right? And that happens for you too, right? if I'm a rising tide, it's lifting your boats. If you're the rising tide, then it's lifting the people boats around you, right? And so we do have a responsibility, and that's why we really have to stop doubting ourselves, right? And start validating our worth so we can know where we can pour. And a lot of us saying, I'm pouring out of the empty cup, I'm pouring out of the empty cup, I don't want to, I don't have the life I want and all of that. And it's really because we haven't activated right on the inside. We definitely need to activate on the inside. I forgot my headphones yesterday, y'all. You definitely need to activate on the inside so you can experience something on the outside. And again, a lot of us are waiting. We're waiting to activate right on the inside because we think that there's going to be something that happens on the outside that's going to transform us on the inside. So, listen, who today's session is for? Good morning, Derek. Who's today's session is for? Listen, if you're consistently second guessing yourself, right, you hesitate to make decisions, worry that you'll fail or fall or disappoint others, right, this session is for you. If you're overly critical of yourself, the way you speak to yourself is full of doubt, judgment, and unrealistic expectation, guess what? This session is for you. Good morning, Dale. Good morning, right? If you feel like you are never enough, right? Or you will never have enough, right? No matter how much you accomplish, you'll always feel like you could have had more or could have done more, right? That is a perspective because guess what? I do want to talk about this. You know, you feel like you're never enough. There is a digestive period that we go to. There is a metabolizing that we do in life. So every morning we get up, we're going to want something. We want something to eat. We're going to want something to drink, right? In our careers, we're growing. We are so there is going to be a part of us that wants more, right? But we do have sometimes a guilt associated to like maybe I should I be wanting more? I'm doing good, right? And then it makes us feel like we're not enough. And I just want to say that listen, we're metabolizing life every day, every moment of the day. If we're activated, right? When we're activated, right? It's kind of like a good analogy of that would be your metabolism, right? So they say that you don't lose weight, right, because you have a low metabolism, right? So you're not really burning the food. If we're feeling stuck in our life and we're not feeling like we're enough, this is a good analogy to say, okay, I have a low life metabolism. Like I'm not digesting enough of the life around me. And what's happening is that these situations is staying like, so I'm not forgiving and, I'm stuck in the past, right? Because I haven't metabolized or digested this thing. And so now I'm carrying that weight. Does that make sense? I thought that was nice. Thank you, God. Put a one in the chat if that makes sense. So if you feel like you're not enough, right? No matter how much you accomplish, you'll always feel like you could have more. Hey, this session is for you. Listen, if you're struggling with imposter syndrome, right? You fear that one day people are going to find out that you're not capable as they think you are. This is interesting, right? This imposter syndrome, right? I have a good job. I'm in a leadership role. I may even be in a relationship, right? And one day they're gonna find out that I'm really not this person, right? This is a this is something I work with a lot in my company. We're going to talk about that. So this session is for you, right? If you rely on external validation, right, your confidence depends on what others say and think about you rather than what you believe about yourself. Listen, this session is for you. And if you feel stuck in a cycle of self-doubt, even when you try to be positive, the voice of your inner critic keeps pulling you down. This session is for you. So if this sounds like you today, right? Today's session is for you because the truth is you don't need permission to believe in yourself, right? You don't need permission to believe in yourself. The moment you stop waiting for external validation and start recognizing your own worth, everything will change, right? So if you're ready for this conversation, put a heart in the chat. All right. All right. So now, right, let's take our deep breath. Right. Welcome back to Project Life, you guys, where we turn theory into practice, right? This is a first step, right? This is really the information, right? Where I'm informing you of these blank spots, right? So we can get the information and then the project grows, right? So then we invest in ourselves. We pay that $47 a month, and then we talk about how do I implement that in my personal life, right? And then once I get that, then I move on to maybe like elevating life, where I start to really activate on a more personal level. So this is like the introduction to um to really transforming your life, right? So let's take our deep breath. Let's take a deep breath, right? This is our time. No pressure, right? Just our presence, you guys. We have already woken up. We have taken care of ourselves. You know, I have my little pearl zone from Africa because I talked about Africa yesterday, right? Um, so before we dive in, I want you to put one word in the chat, right? That really describes how you're feeling today. One word in the chat that describes how you're feeling today. This no judgment, just awareness. Like let's move our energy, right, before we start our day. So what's this one word? All right, mine would be accomplished. You know, I think some of you guys know that I passed my doctoral degree or my dissertation in January 30th, and became officially Dr. Sheila Little, right? And I came up with that limits to lemonade. Um, from limits to lemonade concept. And then I trademarked the stop and now framework. And then after that, though, I started to build this stop and now mythology, right? So adventurous, aware. Okay. All right. So I built this stop and now mythology. And what does that mean for you? That means that you have somebody that you know that's working on your behalf to understand the blocks in your life and come in and whispering in your ear like, hey, you know, we need to do it like this. Hey, you know, in a very gentle way, because I come from where you guys come from. You know, I grew up on the north side. I grew up in a lot of impoverished neighborhoods, right? Molested, raped, beat, emotionally abused, you know, damaged relationships. Mom wasn't available, right? Lived with my grandparents. We have food stamps, right? And I just remember feeling like this is not the life for me, right? I'm looking at them like, how y'all comfortable with this? And I got whooped for that, right? Now when I look back, I realized it was the wisdom inside of me that understood that I was called to do something very different. Toto said knowledgeable, right? And once I stepped into that, right? Once I became aware, self-aware that, oh, you was designed like this for a reason, right? You like reading, you like information. Everybody don't like that, and that's okay, right? Now, how do you synthesize that, metabolize that, and then give it in bite size, right? So people can understand. So the shift can happen as well. So today I'm feeling accomplished because I also finished the curriculum for Heal, which is next week, right? How we heal. We're talking about really shaping our life, you guys, in March. It's Women's History Month. The world was shaped, right, by people, by a small group of people, right, that shaped how we live today. Your life right now is shaped by a handful of people that you came in contact with as a youth, be it your teachers, you know, society, the neighbors, the mean lady on the corner, right, shaped how you see yourself. And so now, as an adult, as a grown adult, it's our responsibility to take back our life, to take it back, and then to shape it how we want it, because our life is shaped in a unique form specific to us. All right. And we need to really not ask for permission to be the people that we were created to be. All right. All right. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat. Listen, all week we've been covering self-awareness, right? The importance of self-awareness. So we talked about the stories that we tell ourselves, the triggers that reinforce those stories, the obstacles that really keep us stuck, the patterns that really hold us back. And guys, today we're going to talk about that voice, right? That inner critic that's always yapping in our mind. Your inner critic really is the internal voice that really shapes your self-perception, your actions, and your confidence. And often without you even realizing it, it's just talking. Like I say, as I'm talking to you, you have an it factor inside of you that is either challenging what I'm saying or agreeing with what I'm saying. And if you don't pay attention to that inner voice, you can literally be reacting without even knowing that you're being nudged. A good analogy for saying who your inner critic is, you remember, it's like I got the devil on this shoulder and I got angel on this shoulder. You see these two people pop up and this one is talking over here. You know, you know that image, right? So that's your it factor, right? And which one am I going to listen to? All right. So self-awareness is the key to really recognizing when the voice is holding you back and choosing to challenge it instead of believing it. All right. So the inner critic thrives on old stories, you guys. It thrives on old stories. This is my inner critic. It's like, where do we know that from? Right? It thrives on old stories. The ones you tell yourself, you're not that the ones that tell you that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not worthy enough, right? Or the ones that tell you about other people and their lack. They can't be trusted. They're trying to get down. um don't get close to them, right? This is all the inner critic trying to isolate you from a community, right? Because we live in a collective consciousness, right? So the inner critic is not just telling you about you're not good enoughness, you're not smart enough, you're not worthy enough, you're not lovable, but it's also telling you that about the people around you. They ain't lovable, they ain't worth your time, they ain't worth this conversation. Don't go, and that inner critic is trying to separate you, because a part of being an ego, living in ego, is really about this. I'm different i'm different in either a negative way, nobody's like me, nobody understands me, or in an egoic way, I'm smarter than them, I'm better than them. Okay, if that makes sense, put a 2 in the chat. So listen, your negative self-talk is often triggered by past failures, past rejections, you guys, and comparisons that reinforce your self doubt, right? And your inabilities of what your perceived inabilities, all right? So the inner critic makes obstacles feel bigger than they actually are, you guys, by convincing you that you can't overcome that. That's too big. You can't do that. Who told you you could do that? Right? So, if unchecked, self criticism becomes an automatic pattern, leading to procrastination, perfectionism, avoidance of change, you guys, um, and stagnation, this feeling stuck. How does procrastination show up? Distracted, knowing I should be doing something, right? Fears, right? What is perfectionism? I want to get it right because I want people to think, right? I want people to think I'm smart. I don't want people to think I'm dumb. I don't want. So I need to be perfect, right? And then this avoidance of challenges. I don't want to be challenged either in a conversation, right? Don't challenge me. I need to, and avoiding me in challenges, also this desire to always be right. And even when you find out that you were wrong, you still hold on to the rightness. Okay. Self awareness means matching those thoughts in real time. Self awareness means catching those thoughts in real time. It's about recognizing, when does this inner critic show up? What did this belief come from? Right. And what truth can I replace with this? Once you become aware of the inner critic, you guys, you can rewrite your script and validate yourself without really waiting for external approval. So today we're taking our control back. Once again, remember, we're going to take our control back all year, right? We're taking it back because when you stop waiting for external validation and start really validating yourself, you know what you become. You become unstoppable, limitless, right? You start to tap into your potential. Okay. All right. So today's quote is, if you talk to your friends the way you talk to yourself, would you still be your friend? Today's quote is, if you talk to yourself the way if you talk to your friends the way you talk to yourself, would you still be your friend? Okay. Think about that. Take a moment. How often do you criticize yourself in ways you never say to someone else you loved? Right? Your inner dialogue really matters, you guys. So today we're shifting from self doubt to self validation, because it's self validating Friday, right? Put a 2 in the chat if you felt that, right? Do I talk to myself the way I talk to my friends, right? And some of us do, right? Some of us do. And then our friends will say, like, man, you so mean, you so judgmental. And then we don't want to hear that, right? But some of us, the people who we really love, the people who we really care about, maybe it's not your friend. Would you talk to yourself the way you talk to your grandma? Anybody that you really love, do you talk to yourself in that way? Okay. All right. Now, Jordan always second guess themselves. right? He was always second guessing himself, whether it was in a meeting, in a relationship, or really making decisions. The inner critic constantly was whispering again. That little man on the shoulder was always whispering, "You're not smart enough, right? What if you fail? People will judge you. What if you say the wrong thing? They sound smarter than you, right?" So Jordan was always questioning himself all the time, right? So Jordan's turning point really was when they started to really question the inner critic instead of believing it. Instead of really asking, "What if I fail?" They start asking, "What if I succeed?" Right? And once they stopped seeking validation from others, they started really validating themselves. And guess what? Everything changed. You don't really need permission to believe in yourself, guys. The moment you stop seeking external validation and start really recognizing your own worth, you reclaim, your power back. All right. I just started laughing because every day I finish, I finish the sessions, I upload them and I listen to them. All right. And when I listen to them, in my mind right now, I feel like I'm talking so fast, right? I feel like I'm talking so fast. So I'm like, slow down. But when I listen to the videos, I'm be like, I talk really slow, So forgive me if you see me like speeding up and talking fast. And another self validating thing. So I write a script out. Um, at the beginning of the week, I write a script out, what I want to say, how I want to say it, and I kind of give some pointers, right? What many people don't know though is that I don't really read out loud well, right? So that's not something I've ever been able to do. I see words that's not there, like sometimes the words will like just scramble all over the screen, right? But here's the thing, my thing was that I wasn't just going to come on, and this is all about self validating and knowing your worth too. I wanted to be very pragmatic in my approach because although I do have the gift of gab, I wanted it to make sense, right? I understand, but even if I understand, I want you to understand this is not a conversation for me. So, how do I pause, step back, really write this in a way that's very formatted so that I can look at it, I can communicate it, and then I can come back to the conversation. Even when I'm speaking to Miss Lorraine, thank you, Miss Lorraine, to Pep, good morning, Pep, right? So I can come back focused and keep a cohesive of conversation. So that challenged me. So now I'm like, okay, I'm reading the information, I'm taking the notes, and then I'm synthesizing that, and I'm allowing it to guide me through this process, right? This was a very self-validating thing because the inner voice is like, you're gonna fumble over your words. Just say it. Just talk about this. Just go off the fly, right? And then I had to go back in and validate that what I really wanted to do was to help to transform. How would that look? I needed a process for that delivery, right? And then I had to then challenge my story, my narrative around my ability to read, right? I'm a PhD. I read all the time, but I'm an internal reader, right? It seems as if like when I start to speak outside, like I will miss words. And in doing that, when I was little, guess what happened? People be like, that ain't what that said. that ain't what that said. So I started to kind of shrink a little bit because I realized that I don't see all the words on the paper. Right. So that made me not want to read, when the teacher would say, read this chapter, or read this or do that. And so that made me not want to do that. But as I got older, I'm like, it's okay, right? It's okay. Cause I be seeing people who make millions of dollars on YouTube and stuff, and they be spelling the words wrong. I'm like, that is not how you spell that, right? So it's okay as long as the message is relaying. So I kind of had to smirk because in my mind I felt like, okay, I'm speaking fast, but that was probably my inner critic, you guys. Because listen, the inner critic is the voice in your head that tells you so many things, right? You're not ready, you'll fail. In my case, you're talking too fast, right? Right. And we have to be aware of this voice, right? So an old thought may be, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable enough, right? I'm not worthy to be married. It and I would say in a religious community, there's an inner critic. I work with a lot of people, like I say, from around the world, and I work with a lot of what are they called? Uh, Christians, but it's not Christians though, it's Catholics. And it's something called like Catholic guilt, right? That a lot of, a lot of people who grew up in Catholicism or in Catholics struggle with. And it's called Catholic guilt. And this is so interesting. And I feel like it also, I don't know if there's something called Christian guilt, but it's as if I'm a sinful person, so I'm not worthy, right? I had a child out of wedlock. I sinned, I lied, and in some way I'm an unworthy person. And the inner critic feeds on that. And so a lot of my clients that come in with this Catholic guilt, right? They always feel like they're just not good enough, and they're trying to really outwit themselves to really start to believe in who they are. And I'm like, okay, this is an interesting dynamic, because we're talking about religion that's supposed to empower us. We're talking about a God that's almighty. We're talking about a creator that created everything, in his most prized possession, right, was the human species. However, we feel so inadequate in the tutelage that we have gotten from these religions. And again, I'm not saying that to down them. I just feel like we feel like we're not enough, right? As human beings, by design, you have literally so much working for you right now. Your brain, your vision, your voice, your senses, your smell, right? Your heart is pumping, your lungs is going. But this feeling of not enoughness still rattles us in such a way. So we want to change that to really, I'm capable, I'm growing, I'm learning every day, right? There's also this idea that I need other people's approval. Um, I get a lot of people who really do feel like I can't really think for myself, or I don't know the right answer. I need to call my friend. A lot of my clients will call me for advice, and I have to walk them through. You already know. So let's talk about what you think, and then let me help you get to the answer, right? Because they don't trust themselves, right? So a lot of us are not trusting who we are. So when we don't trust who we don't trust the words that come up. We don't trust the guidance and direction, our intuitiveness, right? We don't trust ourselves. So that means that I need other people's approval to trust me. How does this dress look? How does this hairstyle look? What should I say to him? Right. And we're always looking for guidance because we really don't have the relationship where we really trust ourselves. Okay. So instead of I need others' approval, how about we think my worth is not determined by external validation, and that I can learn to trust myself, right? And another one is I'm always messing up. I always mess up, right? And then we can just really rewrite that and say every experience is a chance to really learn and improve, right? You are not your inner critic. You are not your inner critic. You are the one who gets to decide the thoughts you believe in. Your inner critic is just really throwing pictures up. It's kind of like if you was your inner if you was watching somebody get dressed and you like, yep, that's the shirt, that shirt I want. If you go into like a store and you're like, hey, I'm looking for a red shirt, give me some ideas, right? And they're like, oh, they give you this red shirt, they give you this red shirt, you get to choose what red shirt you leave with. That's your inner critic. It's just throwing you options. Hey, what about this, what about this? And then you get this, if when you become self-aware, you can say, yeah, nah, that ain't gonna work, that ain't true, that ain't how I want to go. And you can go back in conversation with this inner critic and you can question it. All right. All right. If that makes sense, put a 3 in the chat for me. If that makes sense, put a 3 in the chat for me, because your inner critic is really based on your past fears. And not, remember, I told you through epigenetics, is sometimes not even your past fears. It could be a collective consciousness. So it could be your daddy's fears, your daddy's fears, your mama's fears, your grandmama's fears, your grandmama's mama's fears. All right. So we talk about 3-4 generations back that we can be carrying their voices, right? Their insecurities. So something happened today that's triggering my great grandmother's story about safety in man, right? How do we know this true? Because I can eat some type of food and it's gonna trigger her diabetes in me, right? Right? I can the way my nose look is a part of my grandmother's features and my great great grandmother's features. So if we can pass down features, we can pass down, health ailments, all of that can come through. Guess what? The fears are passed down too in the blood. All right. So this inner critic, a lot of it ain't even ours. Right. It's a collective community of the bloodline of what society has said. Right. And so we get to what? Go into manual and truly change, right? Change how we think about ourselves and start selecting the right clothes to put on, meaning the right thoughts, right? To shape the life that we want and the experience we want to have. If that makes sense, put a 4 in the chat for me. Like what this means is that if you challenge, right, the negative voice inside of instead of accepting it, right, you can rewrite your self-image. That's your template, right? So if you start to challenge the negative voice instead of accepting it, you can rewrite your self-image. And a lot of us just don't see ourselves. We don't see ourselves in a way that's conducive to us really creating the experience that we want, because we see ourselves full of holes. We see ourselves limited. We see ourselves inadequately. We see ourselves as distrusting and unlovable. And then we still desire on the other side of that to be what? Love, to be what? Accepted, to be what? But our own self-image is janky, it's jaded, right? But then we want other people to come to us and see us as bosses, as queens, as all of these things. And it's like, no, change your template. We need to start seeing ourselves like that. Miss Tamika said, hey, Tamika, good morning. Said so true, right? So imagine how it would feel if you would feel um if you would start to fully trust yourself, you guys, right? To know you are enough without needing validation from anybody. And that has to do with how I see myself. Now remember, how I see myself isn't a lot of times how people perceive me in my earlier years, right? So if I had a limited mom, right? If I had a mom who wasn't present, or a grandma who grew up in the South, right? Or I had a dad that was an alcoholic, or let's be real, a lot of us 40s, 30, 80s, let me see, 70s, 80s babies, we grew up in an environment, our parents were smoking weed, they was playing cards, they really didn't have time. So they gave us an image of not enoughness, right? And then the generation before that, migrated up from the South, right? So they're trying to work and build. So they were very much about how things look, right? Because they had to go back down south and really show their family that was still in the fields, still on the dirt roads, that they had made it. So that means that I don't care really what you got going on, you need to look a certain way, right? You need to act a certain way. You need to behave in a certain way. I think Mr. Rain talked about that in her video. And if you guys haven't watched that video, I posted it, right? She talked about having this, if you don't mind me sharing, Mr. Rain, she talked about, her as a mom really wanting to create this image for the community, right? And so she would make her kids, in a sense, fall in line, look like this, be like this, right? And really didn't really hear them and be available to them in the way that a mom should be like that. And a lot of that is just, it's just how by design, I got to go back here, back down south, and let my family know that we are right? Thank you, Miss Lorraine, right? Um, yeah, I gotta let my family know that we all right. I gotta let the community know that we doing good. So I don't care really what you got going on your life, little girl or little boy, right? Put these clothes on. We gonna look like this. We gonna show up like this. Don't ask for nothing. Don't do this. And what that do? That gives us a self-image that we're not important. Our voice is not important, right? And then guess what we start to do? We start to mimic that. So now we become adults, and now what we do is we go back and we try to what? Impress people, even though stuff falling apart, right? We'll start to shun ourselves in a way now, because now we're still trying to seek this validation from other people. If that makes sense, put a 4 in the chat. And thank you for allowing me to share your story, Miss Lorraine. Imagine how it would feel if you really started to trust yourself, right? Knowing that you were enough without needing validation at all. The way you speak to yourself, you guys, really shapes your confidence, your decisions, your future, and how you experience your world. So speak love, right? Speak love into yourself. Accept yourself, right? Not criticize the outcome of something you really had. I want to say it, you really had no responsibility for, but you got responsibility today. All right. So the product of you are a product of your environment. A lot of that you had no responsibility for. You was just doing the best you knew how to do with the information you have. But now that you got new information, guess what? Speak love, have compassion, give yourself grace, and allow yourself to go into this learning curve, right? Not criticize and judge yourself. And again, a lot of times, if we're not self aware, how do I know that I'm critical and judgmental of myself if I'm not self aware? Because I'm critical and judgmental of other people, right? I'm so aware of other people's mistakes, their mishaps, their inadequacies, their fault. It kind of fuel me, right? So if I'm not aware of myself and I'm not aware of this voice you're talking about, Sheila, in your head, right? What I am aware of, though, is the voice that kind of guides me about other people. And I'm gonna tell you this: if you see other people in that way, then 9 times out of 10, you have the same measuring stick for yourself, right? So if you're seeing and you're only noticing other people flaws, 9 times out of 10, that's the same lens that you're looking at yourself with. If you're always seeing other people's mistakes and mishaps and why you can't trust them, guess what? That same measuring stick is what you're using as you're looking at yourself. And if you don't become self-aware of that, you will always feel stuck in a rut. All right. Miss Lorraine said I had not considered that, but exactly how I felt. I had not considered that, but exactly how I felt. I felt, but didn't have the words to really express it. Thank you for that information. Oh, no problem, Miss Lorraine. No problem at all. All right. So a member in our community, right, really started to struggle with imposter syndrome for years, right? She always felt like she wasn't good enough for the promotion. She always felt like every time a relationship, she met a guy who would like her back. She always felt like she wasn't ready for that relationship, right? She wasn't good enough. And these would be good men, right? But she just in some way would hide. But when she started to really challenge this inner critic and start affirming her worth, right, she finally stepped up. She finally stepped up, and guess what? She got promoted at her job and she started to date again. All right. The only thing that needed to change was really how she saw herself, right? Because listen, again, I'm going to say the way you speak to yourself really shapes your confidence, your decisions, and your future. All right. So replacing this self criticism with self compassion really leads to higher resilience, you guys, higher confidence, and higher success. Drop a heart in the chat if you're ready to really silence or manage or handle or become aware, right, of this inner critic so you can start stepping into your power. Because remember, this inner critic, it really is there to be our cheerleader. Our inner critic is really there to be our cheerleader, you guys. But it's a faulty program. It has been faltered because it's not a it's it's a trained mechanism, right? We train ourselves how to speak to ourselves. And if we come from communities where we got spoken to in a way that was demeaning, at the time they didn't know it was demeaning, but get your little ass out of here, get your little bald headed self, your nappy headed self, you know, your big eye, big lip, you know, you stink, you smell like outside, you stink yourself, like all of that stuff. As little kids, you know, our brains is absorbing those messages, right? So when we get older, guess what? Our inner critic starts to mimic that. I know families is still today that don't say I love you. I have an uncle right now. I love him dearly, right? And I have to kind of, in a sense, push him and give him permission to say, it's okay, uncle, say you love me. I know you love me. And it'll come out sometimes, you know. My kid's grandfather, you know, I'll be like, I love you, you know what I mean? And he'll say it every now and again, but he just didn't come from a family that really communicated, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Right. The word love was like very precious. I remember having a conversation with my sister Toto. She on the line too, and she has this theory about love. You don't mind me sharing, Toto, that love is a very sacred place, and I don't just throw that around to everybody, right? And a lot of people hold that, is very sacred. I don't throw it around, and some people don't even say it. All right. So if we've never grew up in a community, in an emotional environment where there were affirming words used, right? And there were fear tactics used to really get us to do the thing we needed to do or to move in the way that we needed to move, right? Then guess what our inner critic uses? Fear tactics, right? It uses uh harsh language, right? To really get us to either shrink, stay comfortable. A lot of times to stay comfortable because the brain don't want to change, right? And safe. If that makes sense, put a two in the chat. I mean, put a six in the chat, because this inner critic is a development of all of our thoughts and ideas. And so we need to really understand that. Listen, the Bible say, "My people cherish by the lack of knowledge." And so if we don't know, one, how powerful and amazing we are, right? How divine we are as a species, right? And then we don't know what got us here. We talk about real history. Okay, what got that voice on my shoulder to really scream at me all of these negative thoughts that now at this adult age of 40, 30, 50, I'm believing? Who is that? Right? This is a part of our discovery. This is a part of our discovery. So now I would say there's four stages, right? We have our discovery stage of life where we're just discovering the being curious about who we are. Then we have our strategy stage. Okay, now that I have this information, how am I going to put it together? What's going to be my strategy, my daily routine, um my daily routine, like, how I start to speak to myself, how I start to grow, right? My implementation stage. Now that I got some information because I was curious, I got a strategy in place. I'm curious about myself. I'm gonna come. My strategy is to come to Project Life every morning, right? To join her growth membership, to be in those conversations, that weekly coaching, right? Then it's implementation. Now I can start moving different. Implementation is very different than execution. I'm implementing what I think I know to get feedback back so that when I go to execute, I'm executing at a higher level because I have information. And a lot of us, we go into implementation, we go to use these tools that I'm giving you in our toolkits, and then it don't work, and you like, that don't work. Okay, so now it's time to tweak it because you still in implementation. Right. This is why we need the expertise, the support of people around us to really help us, guide us as we transform. All right. So let's go into our biblical wisdom, right? Overcoming this inner critic, you guys, overcoming this inner critic. Listen, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Proverbs 18:20-21. Right, your words, the words you speak to yourself really create your reality. And if you're consistently criticizing yourself, you will limit your potential, you guys. So choose words that's uplifting and powerful, right? Your words, especially the ones you say to yourself, they have power. And I talk about this every week. In the words you speak over your kids, in the words you speak over your friends, in the words we speak over our community, has power. And if enough people are seeing our community as bad and our kids as bad and our, in our finances state as, if enough people are saying that, guess what? It has to manifest itself, right? So you can either speak life, confidence, growth, possibility, or you can speak death, fear, doubt, limitations, right? Because we do have power. Your words is a vibrational frequency. Every time it come out your mouth, it's creating, right? Creating an experience in the collective consciousness. Now, if we looked at that as this cup, if this cup was the happiness, right? The happiness cup, right? And I'm speaking happiness vibrationally. I'm just giving a metaphor. I'm not saying this is scientifically true, but I want you to see it so you can understand. The more I speak happiness or life into me, the more the cup fills up because I'm speaking in an affirming way. I'm speaking about the things that make me happy, not the things that don't make me happy, not the things that make me sad, the things I'm angry about, but the things that make me happy, right? The things that I'm grateful for. And eventually it starts to vibrate full enough for me to what? For it to overflow, for me to now experience that thing. So this is why your words matter, because if you talking about, if I had another cup, I'm gonna use the water bottle. If I had another cup and all I was talking about was the things I didn't like, right? The things I don't want, right? I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be in pain. But I'm looking to fill my happiness cup. I'm looking to fill my happiness cup. But I'm talking about everything that don't make me happy. I don't like to be around people. They get on my nerves. Guess what cup I'm filling? I'm filling this one. And as a consequence, guess what? I'm experiencing that vibrationally, emotionally, and otherwise. So we really have to change our language, right? Because death in life is in the power of the tongue, and we have to learn how to communicate what we want, right? And be bold about it. Be bold about it, because somebody in your life, probably you either saw it happen and you said, I ain't gonna do that. You know, somebody was bold and they tried to say what they wanted and then they got shut down. Right. But remember, we're filling a cup, you guys. So it may take a minute. And some of the stuff that we want is big, right? So it may take a minute for it to run over, for you to experience it. So, but you just got to keep saying it. You just got to keep speaking life into that thing. And even if you think about birth, we get pregnant, we have a baby, it still takes 40 weeks for that baby to what? Birth itself, because it needs stuff. But we want it right now. We talked about that instant gratification yesterday. Right? It's hard to break our patterns because we want instant gratification. If it take me, if you knew that it took you 100 times to say something happy about yourself for you to experience true happiness, you will be counting. Okay, that was one, that was two, that was three. But we don't know that gestational period, right? We just know that, hey, I need to shift the way I'm speaking. All right. Because the inner critic really thrives on negative self talk. But when you choose words of encouragement, of trust, of empowerment, you start to shift your reality. Why? Because you start to feel this void space that you have not spoken into. This is life. You start to speak differently. So if you want to silence the inner critic, you guys really start speaking life over yourself daily. That's what that looked like. Speaking life over yourself daily is talking about the things that you want and you desire. You know, I remember, I have three sons, and a fear-based tendency would be, now don't you go out there and be dot dot dot, you know, don't do dot dot dot, right? So I tended to see families do that, right? Telling their sons what not to do and who not to be around. And when I started to have my sons, I was like, you know what? I'm raising great fathers, husbands, and men. So that was my first thing. I'm raising great fathers, husbands, and men. So I'm not raising little boys. But then when I would give them direction, it would be what I wanted them to do. Go out and behave yourself. Mind your business. Stay safe, right? It would be very much clear direction for, leave when you feel uncomfortable, right? Like very much affirming the direction, and then letting them know, I love you, you are loved, you are important, right? And not this fear-based kind of don't you be out there doing nothing bad, don't you be out there smoking weed, right? I'm telling them what not to do, and guess what, 9 times out of 10 that's the thing that they will end up doing. Now, I don't got no perfect sons by far, but I do feel like speaking in the affirming really helped to give them a visual of what I wanted from them, even in disciplining, right? Of what I wanted from them. And so even when we're talking about in our relationships, how we speak to one another, we will say stuff like, I don't want you hollering at me. Okay, so what do you want? I want to have clear conversations. I want to be able to sit down, talk to you in a way that you understand me and I understand you, but stop hollering at me ain't communicating that, right? Stop ignoring me ain't communicating that. But a lot of us think that when I say stop hollering or stop ignoring me, right? I want your attention, right? No, we need to be granular. I need time to sit and talk to you, right? Because I have things to share with you and I want to really understand what you got going on. And guess what? I feel that a lot more in my body too. My heart shakes a little bit. My hands get a little trembling. I get a little sweat because now I'm opening myself up to what? Be rejected, right?
or accepted. That's the part that we miss. To be accepted too, because that is an equal experience that I can have. All right. So this verse really, um, death and life is in the power of the tongue. This verse really reminds us that our inner dialogue really shapes our experiences. And if we consistently tell ourselves we're not enough, we'll act accordingly. But when we start really speaking with confidence and faith, you guys, we really open the door for transformation. Okay. All right. And then our promise verse. I love this promise verse. I brung this up earlier today, and I mean earlier this week. Isaiah 55, 10 and 11. Y'all, when I heard this verse for the first time in my life, I was in my great old big 40-something self. Okay. When I heard this verse, but it was so powerful. It say, as the rain and the snow comes down from the heavens and do not return without watering the earth and making it bud and flourish, so that it yields fruit to the seed to the sower and bread to the eater. So is my words that go out my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish that what I desire and achieve the purpose in which I sent it. Wait, what? So basically, as the rain and the snow come down from the heaven and do not return without watering the earth, you guys, without watering the flowers and doing everything that it was intended to do, so that, guess what? So that the flowers and the grass can yield the seeds to the sowers and the bread to the eaters. God say, so the words out my mouth, right? So the words that go out my mouth will not return to me empty, but it will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for what I sent there. Oh, that was so powerful to me when I first heard that. Listen, just like the rain nourishes the earth, the words we speak over ourselves shape our reality. All right. Miss Lorraine said, don't know why, but I need to set this on the table. Silence the voice of my heart, Lord. I need to see you. Okay. Listen, just like the rain nourishes the earth, the words we speak over our lives shape our reality, guys. If we replace negative self talk with truth, right, it will produce growth and transformation in our lives. Listen, your words have power. When you choose to speak life over yourself, you shift your mindset, your confidence, and your actions. So, this verse really reminds us to say, especially to ourselves, right, we matter, right? That we matter, right? They don't just that they don't just appear, they take root within our hearts, you guys, and shape who we become. So today, stop feeding the inner critic and start speaking life over yourself. Now, I know that last part of this verse says, so is my word, and that's what God is saying, so is my word. But I want you to think about, God created us in his image, right? We are not gods to other people. We're not gods to other people. But God said we're king of kings. King of kings. So that means that we have a dominion, a place that we are entrusted with, because that's what a king is. A king is entrusted by its community to do what? To do what it's supposed to do, to reign, right? To do what he's supposed to do with the income, with the families, right? So he creates, different levels or whatever, but the community entrusts the king. So when we talk about being a king, we're talking about something that you've been entrusted with. So God said, you're king of kings, right? So we were created in his image. So we were created to be creators. And we also was created with this power of being able to use, right? To use our words to create the experiences that we're having. And if we're not aware of how our words are creating our experience, right? Then we're not in our divinity. We're not fully using the divinity that God has given to us to be able to build and live the way that we were created to, right? So Isaiah 55, 10 and 11 really speaks about the power of God's words, really comparing it to the rain that nourishes the earth and causes it to grow. But what exactly is the word that God has promised, right? So God's word is truth of transformation, you guys. Just like the rain has a purpose, the water to water the ground and produce life, God's word was meant to bring transformation into our lives, right? We will align when we align our thoughts and our inner dialogue with truth, you guys, with truth, that that my word has power, rather than the lies of the inner critic, you know what? We will start to bear the fruits of confidence, the fruits of growth, and the fruits of purpose, you guys. We will start to do that because our words will start to do that. Listen, God's word declare our identity and worth. God tells us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. God tells us that we were created in his image, and God tells us that we were more than conquerors, that we are more than conquerors. All of this, and when I'm talking about these promise verses, it is a reminder that there is a divinity in you that is always, 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 always working for your good, right? So when we silence the inner critic and we learn to manage it and cut it down and replace that self-doubt with these God's truths, because guess what? This truth is like rain. It won't leave without doing what it's supposed to do, which is watering this ground, making sure these flowers bud, making sure these animals are fed. That is the purpose of this rain. And just like that rain has a purpose to do that before we go back to the heavens, so is my word. So the things I say. So when I speak it, and I'm speaking it from the promise that God gave to me, right? That I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm created in his image, and that I'm more than a conqueror, right? And he said, God said that his words, when his words come, they will not be void, right? So if he said that about me, then guess what? That means it's true, because God can't lie. That means it's true, because God can't lie. So that means today I get the opportunity to change how I see myself. And a big part of me changing how I see myself is changing how I speak to myself, how I'm seeing myself, my self-image, right? So just like the rain nourishes the earth and produces growth, the words you believe and speak will start to shape your life, you guys. If you plant negativity, you'll see self-doubt. If you plant, you guys, self-worth, you will see confidence bloom. This verse is a promise that words have creative power. What you affirm and speak will produce real change, you guys. And so when you replace self-criticism with self-validation, you start to receive those results, and you start to see the results that align with your growth, with your prosperity, with your experience. And remember, that's a daily act, because we're harvesting every day too. Okay, so we just can't think we're going to say something one time. Listen, I'm drinking this coffee. This my happy cup. I'm filling it up and I'm drinking it. I'm filling it up and I'm drinking it. So this is not a one-time thing. Remember, life is digested, it's metabolized. Our emotions are metabolized, they're digested. So this is not, I'm going to speak over myself, a good time one time. No, I'm going to continue to do this for the rest of my life, because I'm a living vessel. And as a living vessel, my cells are dying off and things are happening. But guess what? More cells is being replenished. Research shows that you get new neurons, but if you don't use them in 7 days, they die. You get new skin every so often. But it's powerful to know that I got the ability to learn new things, because my brain is constantly giving me new neurons, right? But if I don't use it, if I don't learn something, if I don't stretch myself, if I don't do something every week, right, then those brain cells are dying off. All right. So this verse reminds us that we should say to ourselves that we matter. Okay. All right. All right. When we become aware of our inner critic, you guys, you really gain the power to rewrite your story. And that's what really life is about: rewriting our story at every age, at every moment, really rewriting our experience. Because by nature, we have too much. I don't want to say, okay, let me say it like this. The light came from the darkness. When we wake up in the morning, right? Not now, because it's starting to be daylight savings times, right? But in the mornings it's dark, and then the sun rises, and guess what? The sun falls again. All right. I'm saying this to say that there's always going to be light that you're bringing to a dark situation. That's the rewriting of the story. Life is happening and it's bringing you a dark situation. We cannot change that. That is the permanency of life. That is the polarization of life. That is the up and the down, the yin to the yang, the left to the right, right? We need this wholeness. Uh, I believe too, the reason why, and I heard this and I felt like it was so powerful. The reason why there was, because we could ask, well, why would God put a tree in the garden that he knew if they ate of, it would like kill everybody or it would put people in sin, because God is a whole God and he needed to polarize. We're made in polarized. So he gave all the abundant trees, right? But just like right now you need a negative charge to even have electricity. I don't care how little of a, you can have all the positive, but you need a little bit of negativity in there to give us light. You need it. It's the fullness of. So I believe that that one tree in the garden was the polarization of making that garden full, to making it whole. Even if we look at Satan in that way, if we look at any negative thing in that way, like, oh, that's the wholeness. So life is going to bring me darkness. Life is going to bring me darkness, and I get to rewrite that darkness into a light, a story of light, a story of overcome, a story of triumph, a story of great experience. I get to see the gratitude, right? I get to take this clay, and I know this is a scripture, and I'm not trying to take it from the word, but I get to take and shape this experience the way I want to. I get the power to do that. Okay. All right. So if that made sense, I want you to put a heart in the chat for me. If that made sense, put a heart in the chat for me. I know I'm asking y'all to be beautiful and bold and probably challenging and disrupting a lot of things in how you see yourself and how you see the world, but it's necessary. It's necessary for us to really step into our boldness, right? To feel like, okay, so yes, yes, because we are divine beings. And I gave y'all definition of divinity earlier this week, is that being a divine being means that we can transcend our limitations, right? And become limitless beings. But that starts in our minds, in our hearts, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about our world, how we feel about our experience, which is our first environment, our emotional environment, and then how we think, because our emotions are triggering our thoughts, and our thoughts to go back and trigger our emotions, right? And it's this dance that's happening inside of us before it even come out of our mouth, and before it even introduces into how we interact with people. We got a relationship that's going on inside of us with our emotions and our thoughts. And so we want to get that in alignment. We want to get some love in there. We want to open our hearts up. We want to feel a little bit more vulnerable. We want to start to feel actually excited about who we are, for no reason on the outside, but just because I get another opportunity to rewrite my story today. You know, I got time for it. Bring me a dark situation, I got time for it, because I'm gonna rewrite that story to the most brilliant. Hey, thank you so much. The greatest adventure that ever took place, right? And that starts to get your brains to, man, how can I make this a great story? And not to put somebody down, because we good at that. We can, ooh, what if she did this? And then what if, I'm talking about, we can fall out all out on the floor, creating a narrative about somebody else's situation, what they did, how they man stepped up, how this happened and what happened. So we know we creative beings because we do it in our messiness. And I'm not judging it. I'm just giving you an example of how creative we are. We can do it in our messiness. And what if he said this and she said that? And I'm talking about, we can go back and forth with our friends. How do I know? Because I do it. We've done it. But what if we took that same energy and said, what if she was so loved? And what if I'm so loved? What if I'm so beautiful? What if I'm so amazing that these great things, and I can start now to shift into my happiness cup, into my gratitude cup, into the experiences that I want. And then now I start to experience that. Same tactic. I say, like a drug dealer. Most smart people, the great ones, highly intelligent. Now, how do you take that skill and move it under something productive? The skill is not the problem, right? It's what you were using it for, right? Selling drugs and doing all that stuff really ended you up in prison. Now, if we can take that same mentality, that same business mind, right? Shift it under a business, shift it under a relationship. Boy, you would create some great kids. You'll probably be a great, husband, and probably could build a multi-million-dollar business. And guess what? We see it happening. We see it happening in our black men that's going into stocks, that's building a business. Dr. 20 Gray right now, finna be a doctor, served time in prison for selling drugs, right? So we see our black men really shifting and moving this energy. We see it in our women, right? Changing their circumstances. But a lot of this stuff is happening on the outside, but how are we shifting on the inside? That is my question. Are we loving on ourselves? Are we giving ourselves grace? Are we forgiving ourselves? Okay. All right. So our transformational tool today, let me get back to what here. Oh, here, Sheila. The inner critic. This is the inner critic rewrite. So step one, we want to identify one reoccurring thought, right? That we tell ourselves. We want to ask ourselves, is this true? Or is this just fear speaking to me? Right? We want to rewrite that thought into a positive self affirmation, right? Into a positive self affirmation, right? And then we want to say it out loud. We want to make it vibrate, right? So we want to say it out loud and we want to commit to replacing old thoughts with new ones, okay? Here's the thing about saying stuff out loud. There is this kind of thing where we don't really want to say it out loud because it feels a little weird, we had the transformational tool last week where you're supposed to look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself you love yourself, right? 3 times, right? And I talked about the uncomfortableness of this. Here's the thing. When it's time to start saying positive stuff out loud or really speaking life over yourself out loud, we can see other people doing it and we kind of judge them when we see them doing it. So guess what that means? When I do it, I have some type of feeling about it. But it's okay to say, I love you. Get up out the bed and be like, I love you. You are so important to me. Like, hey, especially as we're transforming, because guess what? I'm trying to now get used to these words being in my atmosphere vibrationally, not just in my thoughts. If they're my thoughts, they're like smoke, right? And so we want to change this smoke to liquid form. That's I'm gonna put it in my words, right? And then now those words start to shape themselves into matter, like ice, right? Like a solid thing. Okay, so we do want to move these words out of our minds into our atmosphere and feel what that feels like, and a lot of us, if we get complimented or something like that, you may feel that, right? Like you blush, you kind of feel like, oh, don't look at me. I don't really like to be looked at. But you do, and you do, right? That make me uncomfortable, but you want it. And it's okay. You're safe. You're safe. You're safe in your beauty. You're safe in the love that people have to give you. You're safe in the forgiveness that you have and you really can give yourself. You're safe in your grace. You're safe and you're just as safe in your greatness as you are in your uncomfortable comfortableness right now. You're just as safe in your greatness as you are comfortable in your uncomfortableness. All right. And I think a lot of times we stay in uncomfortable situations because we feel safe in those. And I just want to remind you that you're just as safe in your greatness too, right? But you got to practice that. How does that feel? Because it's going to feel a little vibrationally different, right? Because you're expanding. So you're going to feel a lot more vulnerable. And so we learn how to ground ourselves. We learn how to feel our feet on the floor. We learn how to breathe, do that kind of euphoric feeling, right? Until our body gets comfortable with it. All right. All right. So here's our affirmation for today. I am worthy. I'm enough. I validate myself. My inner voice speaks with kindness, strength, and truth. Let's say that together. I am worthy. I am enough. And I validate myself. My inner voice speaks with kindness. It speaks with strength and truth. All right. And let's just set the tone for this Friday, the self-validating Friday, you guys. Listen, today I silenced the inner critic and I stepped fully into my confidence. Listen, I'm gonna become aware of that voice. I'm gonna silence you. I'm gonna get in the driver's seat, right? And step fully into my confidence today. All right. Okay. Our bonus session, our bonus challenge for the next 24 hours. Listen, catch yourself when your inner critic speak. Just pause, challenge it, and replace it with the truth, right? And then if you want to come back to this thread, drop your biggest realization in the comments. All right. All right. Listen, if this session really spoke to you, if it really spoke to you, right, you already know what to do. Drop a fire in the chat for me. Drop a fire in the chat for me. Hi, Miss Melissa. Thank you. No problem. Okay. Drop a fire in the chat for me. And remember, I want you to go to my YouTube channel. Make sure that you subscribe to I Am Shaping Solutions. You get email notifications and things like that for the Elevating Life podcast and other things that we have coming up this year. Hey, invite a friend. Invite a friend to the Elevating Life group, right? We're trying to get 1,000 members in this group. So invite a friend, talk about it, tag it. If you have some idea today, hey, why don't you post about it? Post about it. Let me know. And then a call to action, again, if this session really spoke to you, join that growth membership. All right. It's $47 a month. All right. Okay. I love you guys. Next week, good morning, Miss. Good morning, cousin guys. Next week, we're talking about the H and shape your life, you guys. Heal. That is what we're talking about. Heal. All about healing. I hope to see you guys there. I love you. I love you. And I'll see you Monday as we start to heal ourselves so we can start shaping our life, right? So that we can really start to experience that in which we deserve. I'll see you guys on Monday. Till later.